You know, we could email 2,000, 20,000, whatever is needed, all at once. The same template with a bit of merged information to look personalised. And whether you do that as a central role or a village role is pretty much down to how they want to use the system.
All right, thank you, Thomas.
Does that make sense? I know I haven't. It's hard for me to demonstrate because we don't necessarily do that here.
No, I definitely understand. Does anybody else have any other questions regarding that? I understand it's going to be more automated than what we're having to do it individually at this point, or running a report and doing something. Even that much more automation will certainly help in the follow-up procedures.
And there is a module on StarRez we don't have that can respond to events in the system. So, for example, if I was to post a charge onto this account that I've just created here, if I was to go, okay, this person's, they were locked out last night, security have reported it. If I go new charge and I pick, I don't know, lockout, I'm not sure where they keep it these days. There must be a category for it. Might be administration. If I pick electronic key, for instance, charge them $7. If I was to post that, you could get the system to automatically email saying, hey, you were locked out last night, you've had an electronic key charge placed on your account, come down and pay it, or just as a note that you've been charged, it will be deducted from your deposit, whatever you want it to say. But the system can be configured to automatically email based on events such as move in, move out, and changes in any of the tables, really. So bear that in mind. That's something that could be available to you guys. It's just we don't have it here yet.
Thomas? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I was going to actually ask a piggyback a little bit on the leasing question. I know because I've been kind of a vocal point on the automation part. You did mention something about a dynamic list or something previously that could maybe even for a director of leasing or something just kind of always generate. Can it refresh each day so you can pull up a list that maybe says like all prospects or something, and every day that you log in it refreshes, so if they end up reserving that morning it won't show up on that list anymore, so you can kind of always see an updated list, and then you can decide by clicking them in email and mail merging and all that.
It is. I understand what you're saying, and that's an important distinction actually. So where we have dynamic list here, it does exactly as you've described. So any of these lists that exist, say Salford bike key holders here. So these people have been flagged as having a bike key in the Salford village. If for any reason one of them handed it back and then somebody went into the record and edited it and say, right, this one doesn't have a key anymore, this list is dynamic, so it will just change accordingly. The person would disappear the next day, or well, within 2 seconds of somebody taking the tick out as it happens. So it's checking it each time you view the list that these people are valid for that list, and is always up to date. So the same thing would work if you made a dynamic list for people with prospective applications for 2014. If they suddenly went off prospect and turned to genuine applicant, they would vanish off that dynamic list.
Would this list be able to dictate whether or not when they were entered in as a prospect, for instance? Would it know the date it was entered? Because if it knew that and the dynamic, and you could just generate lists based off of date entered, you could easily just figure out what emails or filter what emails need to go out to which groups.
Yes, and we do that with things like debtors. Okay. So you've got, and under the application table, you've got date created. So we could easily say, well, I want a date created that is, greater than today minus 7 days. So we're basically asking for things that were created in the last 7 days, and that's just one example. You could do anything you like, really, whether it's created today or whether it was on a specific date. So you can either give it a date range or you can give it a particular day you want to look at. It doesn't matter.
So if we set a predetermined listing of prospects and maybe like let's say five dynamic lists, one for up to 7 days, one 7 to 14, one above, for instance, and keeps going. Every day we log in or whatever, that list will be generated. So if somebody was moved, 6 days they've been a prospect, but over the weekend they moved to 9 days, they would then be on the new dynamic list. Is that correct?
That is correct. And this is an example of one that they may no longer use but has a similar process. So this one is expired. We've got expired bookings, but we've also got bookings that are due to expire. So where it says due to expire in 7 days here at the top, that would be a list of everybody that the booking is set to expire and is within that 7-day window, so that we can warn them and say, get online and pay because we're going to drop you and give you a room to someone else. And that's an example of what you're describing, and you could have 14 days, 21 days, or whatever suits you, really.
That can be set up for accounting, leasing, pretty much any listing you decide. So how StarRez is currently set up, even if we don't win the battle that you were stating earlier, it can do everything up to the point of automatically sending out those emails. But it can at least currently generate all those lists. So if we said every Monday the team member needs to send out this email to the 7-day or less people, this email, blah, 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 it'll at least automatically generate that list to where
Correct.
we could send it out within minutes, regardless.
Yes. So you could make a list for everybody to use that you know will do what it should do, and they just have to bring that up on the screen on a Monday morning and then email them all the email template that you've already created for them. So you can make it a lot easier. But as you say, it's not 100% automated. The system can't look it up and send the email without you even logging on yet. So
it can't dictate who you need to send it to and
Correct.
what letter to send. So that's
Yes.
not bad at all. Okay, I appreciate it.
And we use that for our debtors reports as well. So where you have any kind of report in StarRez, if it's based on students, if it's a report about students, you actually have the option to save it as a list. Now, this is where the distinction comes in. So this is a fixed list. So if I ran a list of all our debtors over $200, I may want to save it as a fixed list. The reason I would save it as a fixed list is because I want to know who I sent a letter to in a week's time, so that I can send them a follow-up letter if they're still a debtor. Well, if I use a dynamic list, anyone that paid and is below that $200 is going to fall off my list. Not potentially the end of the world. However, anybody that became a debtor in the last week would appear on my list, and because I'm sending the second follow-up letter, that wouldn't be fair because that person never received the first letter. So we use these fixed lists as a way of creating a list of students that isn't going to change over time, because we need to readdress those people consistently. So we create a fixed list for our debtors quite frequently. Let's see if I've got any examples on here. We've actually got quite a lot of fixed lists, so it's hard for me to... Here you go. These look like their debtors lists. So they're saying what month that they happen to bring these people up on. And it means that they know exactly who they are and who they sent the first letter to. So in 7 days, they can check who on this list is still a debtor and send them a follow-up letter without worrying that they might be sending a final termination to somebody that's only just gone into debt. So that's the difference between the fixed list and the dynamic list. You use one when you need to know the people that you originally used, and you use the other when you're happy that it's changing all the time. Okay. I know we're coming to the cusp of our time limit. So is there anybody that wants to see something specifically in a bit of detail now? No?
I can't think of anything else right now.
Okay. That's fine. I apologize if I've been rushing through this real quick. There's an awful lot that I could demonstrate.
I have a question.
Okay.
As far as like right now, because we scan our checks through into one site, how does that work with this program?
That's a very US-specific requirement, and I believe it's one that they've raised with StarRez, because I have no idea how check scanning really works or the process. We don't really have checks in the UK as such. A few people may pay with them, but it is a manual process. Whether the US market, their StarRez have already integrated check scanning, remains to be seen. But I can't really answer your question as how that would necessarily work. The only thing I would say is if you can get more and more people driven through the online process, we could start to reduce the amount of these checks that you're having to process. Because with the online application process, you should also get an accounts module where they can go online in the middle of the term and make payments that they're overdue. Again, hopefully eliminating checks where possible, but I fully appreciate the US is very sort of check-driven in places. So it's something that we're waiting on just to feed back information on.
Well, it's not just the checks, it's that $18 convenience fee. Most of them want to avoid that. That's why they submit the checks.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, I have a quick question about the online payment. Do you have to go in and manually do that payment then, or does it automatically take the money from the card and credit it to their account?
It automatically charges their card and then posts an equivalent payment on StarRez on their ledger, so that we've got a record of what they paid and when, and don't have to deal with it at all, other than maybe running an end-of-day check, to make sure that it balances.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's hard for me to demonstrate because I haven't got my company card to hand. I don't really want to pay somebody's rent. But trust me, even the online shopping cart automatically posts the payment and any charges for the items that they bought, so we can see what they bought and the payment for those items.
So how does it assess rent every month? Does it automatically go in and process? It knows on the first to charge everybody the rent, or?
It's not automatic, however, it is done on bulk. So you could opt to run this at a village level. You could say, well, actually, we're going to do our reservations charging on a global level. It's entirely up to how you want to work. But you literally click on reservation charge. You can see here I'm operating on 11,000 people. You can say, I want to charge everybody that's on a specific term, or you can ignore that and say, I want to charge everybody regardless. But we tend to work through the terms one by one, just so that we know roughly whether it looks right or not. You can say I only want to charge reserved and in-room people, and history maybe, because they're the ones that are under contract and should be charged. We just hit next. We say, okay, we'll charge them up to, I don't know, a certain day. Entirely up to us. We might charge them from the 15th to the 15th, in line with the direct debits in the UK. You might charge them to the end of the month each month. Depends how you work and how your billing cycle works. You just hit next. We have some extra options here, but as a general rule, you wouldn't be using them. This lets you define how it appears on the ledger. So it's going to put the room type, the date range that you've charged them, and the rate that it was at. You can change that slightly if you want to, and what date the charges are to be posted for. So you can date them in the future if you need to, next month. Again, it really depends on how you intend to work the billing process, and you can then preview what the billing would be if you were to run it. So you don't have to commit at this point and find out you did it wrong. You can just hit preview and it'll go off and attempt to do it. Now, I've probably made a big mistake in trying to do 11,000 of them at once. So it's going to preview them, but it might take a bit of time to think about it. Because what it's doing is it's going through every booking and looking at how it should be charged. And what the rates are, and then because I've not done it from the 15th to the 15th, it's also going to prorate some of it, and so you can see here it's chomping through them. I mean, it's not going to take forever, but we're doing a lot at once, so it'll take a minute. But we do that at the village level each month in line with when we take the rent. So whether that would apply in the US, I don't know. You might be able to just run it at head office and say, well, at the end of the month, we always build them for the next month. It's entirely up to the user. So again, it's not driven by StarRez. They don't tell us how it has to work. They just give us an awful lot of options so that we can try and accommodate our business practice within the system, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Thomas. I hate to cut short, but it's late for Thomas, and we all have things going on. I've got people telling me they need to hop off or different move outs and things. So
understood.
We're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Please, though, I know you have questions. Please do send those to us. You can email those to me. I can compile them for Thomas or for the rest of the group. Thank you so much, Thomas, for your time today.
More than welcome.
We very much appreciate it. And thank you again to all the village representatives who are here. We're glad you were able to make time to join us, and we know you're at a busy time of year. Again, even if you don't have specific questions, if you don't mind, just shoot me an email to let me know what you thought about what you saw. We want to hear feedback, and so definitely please shoot me an email and just let me know what you thought. Send me your questions, your discussion topics, anything like that. And that's all I have.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kay.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everybody.